Jamie Miller used to have breakfast with his mother in the kitchen every morning before going to school, but today there was a strange silence in the air. It was drizzling outside and raindrops were hitting the window pane in a chaotic pattern. While eating breakfast, Jamie looked at his mother, who was constantly talking to someone on the phone. There was worry on her face, as if she sensed the arrival of a big storm. Jamie thought to himself that maybe it was some family issue, but when he reached school he realized that the worry wasn't about home, it was something that would shake the very foundation of his own life. Police cars were parked outside the school building. As he entered, he saw all the children gathered in a corner. Some had fear on their faces, others were whispering about some incident. Suddenly a police officer stood in front of Jamie and said, "Jamie Miller, would you please come with us?" Jamie looked at the officer in surprise and only managed to say, "What happened, sir?" The officer replied, "Seriously, this is all related to you. You are being arrested." Jamie was stunned. He couldn't believe that just yesterday he was preparing for the school science project and today the police were arresting him as he was taken away from the school hall in handcuffs. The noise among the children stopped. All eyes were on Jamie. No one could believe that the same Jamie who always kept to himself and stayed lost in his books was now being arrested for murder. While sitting in the police van, thousands of questions swirled in Jamie's mind, but the biggest question was why he was being accused. He had gone straight to the library after school that day. He hadn't fought with anyone. It was his classmate Emily who was found dead outside the school yesterday evening, but Emily was everyone's favorite, always smiling, friendly with all who could have killed her. And why, Jamie kept thinking, and the van drove off toward the city. After reaching the police station, Jamie was seated in a room where two police officers were sitting at a table in front of him. The seriousness of the interrogation was evident on their faces. One of the officers said, "Jamie, we need to ask you some questions. Where did you go after leaving school yesterday evening?" Jamie quickly responded, "I went to the library. I had to complete my project there." The officer picked up a piece of paper and said, "A witness has given a statement saying that you were last seen with Emily behind the school. Is this true?" Jamie nervously replied, "No, sir, I went to the library. Someone must have misunderstood." The officer showed him another report detailing the marks found on Emily's body, indicating she had been attacked from behind. Jamie was startled and said, "But sir, I didn't do anything. Please believe me." The clock ticked on and Jamie's heart sank. His mother was called to the station, and when she arrived her eyes were red from crying. Jamie looked at her and said, "Mom, I don't understand what's happening. I didn't do anything." His mother embraced him and said, "I know, son, I know you didn't do anything, but we have to answer these questions. We have to prove the truth." Jamie looked into his mother's eyes where there was belief, but in the police's eyes there was only suspicion, as if they had already decided that Jamie was the killer. The police examined the footage from cameras installed outside the school. The video showed Emily leaving the school, but Jamie was not visible. The police said this is proof that Jamie was not there at the time, but then a new video surfaced showing a boy walking behind the school whose clothing resembled Jamie's. The police claimed that it was Jamie. Jamie watched the video and said, "That's not me, sir. I was in the library at that time." Checked the library's cameras, but sadly the library's cameras were found to be broken, and this became Jamie's biggest setback, as he had no proof to support his innocence. During the investigation, Jamie's classmates were questioned. Some said Jamie and Emily often talked in groups, but there had never been any arguments between them. Some said Jamie was always quiet and didn't talk much to anyone. A few others mentioned that Emily often joked with Jamie, and maybe someone didn't like it and decided to take revenge by killing her. The police were recording every statement, but still there was no solid evidence against Jamie, only suspicions, and those suspicions seemed enough to ruin the life of an innocent boy. Jamie was presented in court. The courtroom was crowded and journalists with cameras were standing, their eyes all on Jamie, who was standing before the judge in handcuffs. The judge asked the prosecutor, "What is your case?" The prosecutor, while presenting his arguments, said, "We have video footage showing a boy who looks like Jamie at the scene of the crime, and we have testimony that Jamie and Emily were seen together after school." The judge nodded and said, "We need to determine if this evidence is sufficient or not." The defense attorney said, "Jamie is a bright student and there is no direct evidence against him." Jamie's life had become a puzzle, with every day in court bringing a new twist. Sometimes a new witness would come forward and other times old things would be revealed. One day Emily's friend testified in court saying that she remembered Emily had mentioned being scared and receiving threats. When the attorney asked if Emily had named anyone, the girl said no, but she kept saying that if something happened to her she would tell everyone. A silence fell over the courtroom, as this could change the direction of the case, but the question remained, who was it that Emily was afraid of? Was it Jamie? Jamie or someone else. As the case progressed, Jamie's mind became more confused. At night he would have nightmares. He kept remembering the moment when the police handcuffed him and took him away from school. He remembered the helplessness in his mother's eyes. He wondered if his life would ever return to normal or if he would always be known as a criminal. He recalled the moments when he used to work on projects with Emily. Those memories that were now just distant thoughts. He couldn't understand what had happened to change the course of his life. He was just an ordinary boy who dreamed of becoming a scientist. In court, when Emily's friends said that Emily was scared of someone, the defense attorneys seized on this point. Jamie's defense lawyer requested permission from the judge for further investigation, as it was possible that a third party who had not been considered was involved in Emily's murder. The judge granted a 1-week extension and scheduled the next hearing. Jamie was sent back to jail and his heart sank once again as he wondered who it could be that Emily was afraid of. Was it another student from school, a teacher, or someone outside of school who had an unusual influence in her life? Meanwhile, Jamie's lawyer began thoroughly reviewing all the school videos and Emily's social media accounts. They found that Emily had posted some strange things on Instagram in the past few weeks. One post showed a picture of a tree with the caption, "Some truths are deadly." Another post showed a tree with the caption, "I come here often to find peace." The lawyer located this spot and he and Jamie's mother visited it. The place was a small park located behind the school where students often spent time after school. When they arrived, they noticed that someone had carved words into the trunk of the tree. The words said, "He is watching." This message gave the case a new twist. Jamie's lawyer immediately filed a request in court for further investigation. Based on this new discovery, the judge granted permission and ordered the police to monitor the park to see if there was any suspicious activity. The police installed hidden cameras and placed officers in plainclothes to catch any suspect. For 3 days there was no unusual activity. But on the 4th day, late at night, a person wearing a mask came to the park. He went straight to the tree, took something out of his pocket and buried it there. The police caught him, and when they removed his mask, everyone was shocked. It was a former student from the school who had been expelled 2 years ago due to some issues. The boy's name was Brandon. The police took him to the station and began questioning him. Brandon initially denied any connection to Emily's murder, but when the police showed him Emily's photo and a note found under the tree, he became nervous and confessed he admitted that he had a crush on Emily, but when she rejected him and humiliated him in school, he decided to take revenge. He said that he had called Emily behind the school, and when she arrived he tried to convince her to talk to him, but when Emily started screaming he panicked, pushed her, and she fell onto the stones and died. Upon hearing this, Jamie's mother broke down in tears and said, "My son didn't do anything." After Brandon's arrest, the police presented Jamie in court again. All the evidence was presented, including Brandon's confessional statement. The judge acquitted Jamie and said that it was a tragic incident where an innocent child had to face wrongful accusations. Jamie looked at his mother in the courtroom, who was bent in a thankful prayer. Outside, media cameras were filming and reporters were taking Jamie's pictures, calling him a hero, but there was no smile on Jamie's face. Inside him was a wound that might never heal. He knew he was innocent, but what he had lost in proving it was irreparable. When Jamie returned home, he sat in his room and reflected on the memories he had with Emily. He knew that Emily's death had been an accident, but that accident had changed many lives. Brandon's life was ruined. Jamie's innocent days were taken away, and Emily had been deprived of a beautiful future. He thought that sometimes justice comes at a heavy price. He took out his diary and wrote, "The truth never hides," but by the time it comes out, many innocents have already been hurt. After that, Jamie decided to return to school, but the atmosphere at school was no longer the same. The students looked at him strangely, some with sympathy, some with surprise, and some with fear. He knew that he was no longer the same ordinary student. He immersed himself in his studies, but at night he still saw Emily in his dreams. She would scream and call for help, telling him, "Jamie, I'm scared." He would wake up sweating and his mother would place her hand on his head saying, "Son, it's all over." But for Jamie, those memories were not so easy to forget. One day the school held an event where students were given the chance to share their stories. Jamie hesitated but decided to go on stage. All eyes were on him. He took the microphone and said, "I want to tell you a story I never wanted to share, but maybe it's necessary to save someone else." He spoke about how he became the victim of an accusation, how he fought for his innocence, and how he learned that proving the truth requires not just words but also courage and time. As he spoke, some students were crying, some had their heads down, and some stood silently in their seats. Jamie's speech changed the atmosphere of the school. People began to see him as a lesson, an example, teaching that decisions should not be made hastily and that every face has a story that is misunderstood not by looking but by listening. After his speech, Jamie felt a bit freer. He thought maybe now he could leave his past behind and move forward. He decided to start a new journey. He wanted to become a voice for others. He didn't want anyone else to become Jamie. When Jamie finished his speech, the entire school applauded. He was later awarded a certificate by the school, praised as a young person who faced difficult circumstances and saved his identity with the truth. But Jamie still felt an emptiness in his heart. He knew that the words of praise and the certificate couldn't erase the fear that lingered with him every morning when he woke up. The first thought that came to his mind was, if Brandon hadn't been caught, where would I be today? Would I be in jail? Would my mother be counting the days to see me? Or would I never breathe the free air again? These questions kept him restless. These days Jamie had joined the school drama club to keep himself busy. The club staged plays on social issues and presented them to the local community. Jamie thought maybe he could turn his story into a performance, turning the pain hidden in his heart into art. With the help of his teacher, he wrote a script titled Shadows of Truth that told the story of a boy who was falsely accused and fought against society to prove the truth. When the play was performed, the audience had tears in their eyes, and many came to Jamie saying, "You touched our hearts." After the play, a local newspaper featured Jamie's story. The feature gained attention across the state, and many praised Jamie's courage on social media. Some lawyers and social workers reached out expressing their desire for Jamie to help children facing false accusations. Jamie felt that maybe this was his new path, a new form of his pain that could now become hope for others. He joined an organization that provided legal assistance and protected the rights of innocent children. While working with the organization, Jamie came across many cases where children were arrested based solely on suspicion. Some had families who couldn't support them, and others didn't understand the language or legal system. Jamie raised his voice for them and testified in court. He shared his own story and told judges how a misunderstanding could ruin a child's life. His passion inspired many, and soon, Jamie was recognized as a social justice activist. Jamie returned to his school and conducted a workshop titled Knowing Before Judging. He told students the importance of understanding someone's truth before doubting them. He shared Emily's story and said he never wanted her to die. If only Brandon had spoken to someone instead of acting in violence, 3 lives could have been saved. Jamie said, "We must learn to feel the pain of others, and that justice is not only in the courts but also in our attitudes." His words touched both students and teachers, and the school decided to host the workshop annually. Jamie no longer dreamed only of becoming a scientist. He was now a young man who spoke of reforming society. He also began searching for his father, who had left him during childhood. His mother told him that his father was a beautiful person, but he gave into life's challenges. Jamie thought maybe he too was afraid like Brandon, and that fear had driven him away. Jamie decided to find his father to fill the void that had always existed in his heart. Jamie traveled to several cities in search of his father. He spoke to people who had once been his father's friends. Eventually he learned his father lived in a small town. Jamie went there and knocked on the door. An old man opened it with eyes filled with surprise and regret. Jamie said, "I'm Jamie, your son." The old man replied, "I thought you'd never come." Jamie said, "Maybe I should have come, because some truths, even if late, must be heard." They hugged, and years of distance melted away in tears. Jamie spent some days with his father and shared the story of his life. His father said he didn't want to become like Brandon, which is why he stayed away, but it was also a form of weakness. Jamie replied, "The weak aren't those who are afraid, but those who run from fear." "You didn't run, you stayed and asked for forgiveness. That is true courage." Jamie forgave his father and welcomed him back into his life. This moment was another victory for Jamie as he accepted another truth and tried to heal another wound. Jamie had now become a complete human being. His scars had become his identity, and his pain became a light for others. He began writing a book titled Surviving the Shadows, in which he poured his entire story, his fears, his hope, his courage, and his truth. The book was not just a personal journey but a message for every youth facing pressure or false accusations. Jamie knew the truth might take time to come forward, but it always does. When Jamie expanded Project Clarity to more cities, he realized his story was no longer just his own. It had become the story of a generation. He met many children in schools who were seen as criminals by society, but whose eyes reflected innocence. He embraced them, listened to them, learned about their dreams, and told them that courage to speak the truth is the greatest weapon. He would say, "If you ever feel misunderstood by the world, first try to understand yourself. You are the first guardian of your truth." He read books with them, played with them, and gave them the strength to live. One day Jamie organized a conference in his city, inviting all the children who had once been accused or victimized. These children shared their stories boys turned their tears into words and applauded one another. Jamie said, "Today we've turned pain into power. We've shed the burden society placed on us. Now we are free, and those who are free help others find freedom." He gave each child a certificate that read survivor not victim. For them this moment was nothing short of a dream. Jamie was honored as the youth ambassador by his city's administration, who declared him the voice of the youth, representing truth and hope. To him it wasn't just an honor but a responsibility. He said, "If I can change even one child's life, my struggle is a success." He secured more funds for his organization and established a center that provided legal advice, mental health guidance and educational support. The center was named Lighthouse, a beacon of hope for children lost in the darkness. One day the same girl who had written the first letter to Jamie arrived at the center. She had become a lawyer and said, "Where I am today is because of you. I came here today because I want to become the same hope for others that you were for me." Jamie hugged her and said, "That was my dream, that those who follow me will become even better than me." She smiled and said, "Your dream has come true." Hearing this, a bright glow returned to Jamie's eyes, the kind that comes only from a heart at peace. Jamie's center had now become a movement. Similar centers opened in many cities across America, and Jamie was celebrated internationally. His book became a bestseller and was studied in universities as a case study. He still sat among children in simple clothes, telling stories and inspiring their dreams. He never sought fame but saw every success as a new beginning and continued to learn. One day while reading a book to children at the center, a small child asked Jamie, "Does the truth ever win?" Jamie smiled and said, "The truth never loses, my child. Sometimes it just takes time to be recognized. Believe in your truth and have the courage to change the world. Children like you are the heroes of tomorrow." The child said, "I want to be like you." Jamie replied, "Be better than me. That's the true fulfillment of my dream." Jamie started spending more time with his aging mother. Every night he would tell her stories and kiss her hands, saying, "Mother, if it weren't for you, none of this would have been possible." His mother would say, "A son like you keeps a mother young forever because your courage is the rhythm of my heart." Jamie would reply, "You are my identity and the light in your eyes is my light." In the final years of his life, Jamie founded a global foundation for children's rights. He partnered with UNICEF and visited countries in Africa, South Asia and the Middle East. Witnessing the conditions of children there made him even more determined that his fight wasn't just for America, it was for humanity. He said, "As long as I breathe, I will stand for children, because holding the banner of truth is a lifelong promise." Jamie's final lecture took place in Washington, D.C., where thousands of youth gathered to hear him speak. He said, "My story isn't just mine, it's yours too, because each person must face their own truth, and if we don't give up, we can change the world." When he finished, the entire hall erupted in applause. A little girl came up and asked, "Can I be a light like you?" Jamie said, "You are already a sun, and the sun doesn't need anyone else's light." Jamie spent his last days with his mother, saying, "Now my soul is at peace. I gave love instead of hate, forgiveness instead of blame, hope instead of pain, and I never hid the truth of who I am." When he passed away, thousands of children attended his funeral dressed in white, holding placards that read, "Thank you, Jamie, for teaching us the truth."